Hello everyone, welcome to this session on New Drug and Clinical Trial Rules 2019 with special emphasis on Chapter 5, 8, 9, 10 and 11. At the end of the session, you'll be able to understand the New Drug and Clinical Trial Rules 2019 which replaced Schedule Y. In March 19, 2019, the New Drug and Clinical Trial Rules replaced Schedule Y which was released in 2005. There are 264 pages, 13 chapters, 107 rules, 8 schedules, and 27 forms with several tables in this NDCT. So, Chapter 5 deals with permission for a clinical trial. Chapter 9, import and manufacture of new drugs and IND for clinical trial study. Chapter 10, import or manufacture of new drugs for sale and distribution. And Chapter 11, import and manufacture of unapproved new drug for the treatment of patients, especially with rare disease in government hospital and medical institutions. We should know that the New Drug and Clinical Trial Rules released on March 19, 2019 has replaced the earlier regulations and Schedule Y for new drug testing in human use. However, it still stands for veterinary use. So what is a new chemical entity? Any substance not approved as a drug in any country, that is, it is proposed to be developed as a new drug for the first time. It has never been manufactured in the whole globe. That is a new chemical entity. So, an investigational new drug is defined in the NDCT as a new chemical or biological entity or substance that has not been approved for marketing as a drug in any country. What is an investigational product? It is a pharmaceutical formulation of an active ingredient or placebo being tested or used in clinical trial. So what is an unapproved active pharmaceutical ingredient? It is a pharmaceutical ingredient which has never been approved or licensed in India by the regulatory authority. So what is a new drug? A drug used in other country but not tried or tested in Indian population. It can be a modified or sustained release form of a drug, a novel drug delivery system, new route, new indication, new formulation of a drug, and it has to be approved by the Central Licensing Authority, and the new drug status stands for the next 4 years. So let's go into the various chapters of New Drug and Clinical Trial Rules. Chapter 5, Rule 23, Permission to conduct clinical trial of new drug or investigational new drug as a part of discovery, research and manufacture in India. The Central Licensing Agency responds within 30 working days. Either it is a permission, a rejection or query. Acceptance of CT4A. If the applicant does not get any response from the Central Licensing Authority within 30 days, it is considered to be an approval and the applicant has to inform the Central Licensing Agency in CT4A, and acceptance of CT4A is considered automatic approval by the DCGI. Now, what is Rule 24? In case of new drug which is approved outside India, the Central Licensing Authority replies within 90 working days. There is no automatic approval in CT4A as in the case of a drug that has been developed in India. So, the CLA will respond within 90 working days, give a permission, rejection or ask for a query. The clinical trial has to be registered with the CTRI, Clinical Trial Registry of India, and 6-monthly status report of each clinical trial has to be submitted to the Central Licensing Agency electronically in the Sugam portal. In case of termination of any clinical trial, we have to again inform the Central Licensing Agency within 30 working days. What is an academic clinical trial? Academic clinical trial is intended solely for academic research. The drug formulation is solely for academic research, and hence no permission is required from the central licensing agency for conducting an academic clinical trial. The observation of such clinical trials are not required to be submitted and not used for promotional purposes. It is initiated after prior approval from the ethics committee. However, if there is a possible overlap, the ethics committee will inform the central licensing agency, which responds within 30 working days. If there is no response, then it is deemed to be an approval. No permission is further needed. Now let's go into chapter 8. The rules 52 to 66. It covers all the requirements of manufacture of new drugs and investigational new drug in the country for the purpose of conducting clinical trial. So rule 52. The application form has to be in form 10 for permission from the Central Licensing Agency, that is our CDSE or Central Drug Standard Control Organization. And all the documents according to the fourth schedule, all the details which are written in the second schedule, and the fees of rupees 5,000 per product according to the sixth schedule has to be submitted to Central Licensing Agency. And then the rule 3, which grants permission for the manufacture of the drug, that is given in CT10. So CT11. We apply in CT10 and the permission is granted in CT11 to manufacture new drugs or investigational new drugs within 90 working days. So the Central Licensing Agency can either grant a permission on CT11 or reject the request or ask for query for any deficiency. And the investigator or the sponsor can respond to the query, and the Central Licensing Agency scrutinizes it and again gives a permission or rejects. What happens in case of rejection? There's a method for appeal. So the sponsor can reapply with a fees of rupees 200, and we can wait for a period of 60 days so that the Central Licensing Agency will verify, scrutinize, and again permit or reject. What happens when again the proposal is rejected? The sponsor can appeal to the central government within 45 days, and again the central government can either permit or reject within 60 days. Rule 54 is regarding the validity of license. It is 3 years from issue unless it is suspended or cancelled by the Central Licensing Agency because of any other cause. And if due to any reason the sponsor is not able to initiate the clinical trial, or in the case of exigency, the license can be extended for 1 more year. Rule 55 deals with the condition of permission. The conditions are: the new drug should be only for the purpose of clinical trial. No part of it can be sold in the market or supplied to any other person or agency or an institution or organization. It has to be manufactured only in small quantities and manufacture it in good manufacturing practices, and maintain a record to whom the drug is supplied as well as the CMD, chemistry manufacturing data, and destroy if the drug is substandard or after the trial has ended. Rule 56 is the license to manufacture new drugs. We have to apply to the concerned state licensing authority for manufacturing this new drug in Form 30 according to the Drug and Cosmetics Act, and we have to also submit the permission that we obtain from the Central Licensing Agency in the Form CT11 and get a permission from the SLA in Form 29. The Rule 57 states that the trial site is bound for inspection by the licensing authority. It can be done at any point and without any prior notice. And finally, the Rule 58, it is a regulatory process. What happens if the investigator or the sponsor fails to comply with the condition? Then the Central Licensing Agency can give a show cause notice. The sponsor and the investigator respond to the show cause notice, and the Central Licensing Agency, after hearing them, can suspend such permission or cancel the permission. The sponsor can appeal to the central government within 60 days of the receipt of the order, and the central government can pass an order either to continue with the order of CDSCO or ask the Central Licensing Agency to reconsider the application. Application for permission and permission to manufacture, Rule 59 and 60. So manufacture of a pharmaceutical formulation, that is a new dosage form, the application has to be given in CT 12 and the permission is granted in CT 14. Whereas for the manufacture of an active pharmaceutical ingredient, the application has to be given in CT 13 and permission is granted in CT 15. So similar to the first one, the permission or rejection or query by the Central Licensing Agency occurs within 90 days and they can appeal to the Central Licensing Agency within 60 days if it is rejected with a fees of rupees 2000, and again if it is rejected, appeal within 60 days to the central government, and the central government can either give a permission which is valid for 3 years, and in case of exigency or if there is any relevant reason, they can extend it for 1 more year. So for the manufacture of a pharmaceutical formulation, permission is granted in CT 14, and for an active pharmaceutical ingredient, permission is granted in CT 15, and the permission is valid for 3 plus 1 year. Rule 63 deals with the condition of permission, Rule 65 inspection, and Rule 66 manner of labeling. Coming to the chapter 9, that is for the import of an unapproved new drug from Rule 67 to 73. So similar to the manufacture of a drug, Rule 67 is application in Form CT 16 along with the essential documents that have been prescribed in Schedule 4, the details of which have been given in Schedule 2, and the prescribed fees of rupees 5,000 as prescribed in Schedule 6, and the permission is granted in Form CT 17 under Rule 68. Similar to the validity of a license, it is valid for 3 plus 1 years according to Rule 69. The conditions for license like agency, quantity, record of licensee, destroyer of substandard drugs, good manufacturing practice and storage is by Rule 70. Rule 71 inspection, 72 suspension or cancellation of the import license, and Rule 73 deals with the labeling of the drug. Now what is Chapter 10? Chapter 10 is related to clinical trials with the import of the drugs for sale and distribution. So, Rule 75 to 79. Rule 74 is regulation of import. Neither anybody can import or manufacture any drug for new drug for sale or distribution unless it is permitted by the Central Licensing Authority and it complies with all the requirements. So similar to the manufacture of new drug, the import of drugs for sale and distribution is by Rule 75. However, we can see here that the fees is in lakhs. So the application for permission for import for sale and distribution of drug is given in CT 18 and the permission is given in CT 19 for an active pharmaceutical ingredient and CT 20 for a pharmaceutical formulation. The timeline is the same, 90 days for Central Licensing Agency to either approve or reject. And the appeal procedure is also the same. And Rule 77 deals with the condition of permission, Rule 78 inspection, and Rule 79 license to import for sale and distribution. Rule 80 to 84 deals with the manufacture of new drug for the purpose of sale or distribution. So Rule 80, we apply for permission on Form CT21 with the prescribed fees in lakhs. Then Rule 81, that is the grant of permission in CT22 for active pharmaceutical ingredient and CT23 for pharmaceutical formulation. The timeline is similar. Rule 82, the conditions. Rule 83, license. Rule 84, suspension or cancellation of permission. And Rule 85 is the responsibility of importers or manufacturers in marketing new drugs. We have to market only for approved indication and only market approved formulation. The Chapter 9, Rule 86 to 90 deals with the import of an unapproved new drug. For patients suffering from life-threatening disease, permanent disability, or unmet medical needs, it has to be requested by a medical officer of government hospital and import it in CT24. The drugs approved for marketing in the country of origin. The drug has to be approved for marketing in the country of origin. And we can order for maximum 100 average doses per patient. The number can be increased if we can give proper clarification. Rule 87 deals with permission, Rule 88 conditions, Rule 89 suspension and cancellation, and Rule 90 deals with inspection. Rule 91 to 96 is the manufacture of an unapproved new drug under clinical trial. So again, if the patient is having a serious or life-threatening disease, there is no satisfactory therapy available in the country, can be approved to be manufactured in limited quantity. So Rule 91 deals with the application in Form CT26, Rule 92 permission in CT27, 93 condition, 94 inspection, 95 suspension or cancellation, and 96 is the license to manufacture an unapproved new drug under clinical trial for life-threatening disease. So life is about rules. So along with the new drug and clinical trial rules, two golden rules of life. The wife is always right. And when you feel she is wrong, slap yourself and read rule number 1 again. Thank you.